Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. That night started like any other, quiet, calm, and unassuming. The city lights flickered through the curtains, painting soft golden lines across the bed where I sat, waiting. My heart raced faster than I wanted to admit, even though I kept telling myself it was just another evening, until the sound of his footsteps echoed from the hallway. Something about the way he walked, steady, certain, and almost deliberate, sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't know if it was fear, excitement, or both. When he entered the room, the air changed. His eyes met mine, and there was a silence that said more than any word could. You know that moment when everything around you fades, the ticking clock, the city noise, even your own thoughts, and all you feel is someone else's presence? That's what it was like. A slow burn of connection you can't name but can't look away from either. He loosened his tie as he walked closer, his voice calm yet teasing when he asked if I trusted him. My breath caught somewhere between a laugh and a whisper. There was something about him, something that made me feel safe and uncertain at the same time. I nodded, maybe too quickly, but it didn't matter. The world had already started spinning differently. He sat beside me, his hand brushing mine, and the simple touch sent warmth rushing through my veins. The distance between us disappeared faster than reason could stop it. It wasn't just attraction, it was a slow unraveling of two people who had been pretending not to feel too much. And when he leaned closer, when I felt his breath on my skin, it was like the whole night held its breath too. But just when I thought I knew what would happen next, when I thought the story was moving towards something I could predict, his expression changed. There was that smirk, the kind that hides a secret, one you're both afraid and eager to discover. He whispered something I didn't expect, something that turned the moment from tender to dangerous in a heartbeat. And then, nothing. Just the quiet hum of the night, the sound of my pulse in my ears, and the feeling that this was only the beginning of something I wasn't ready for. Now, before I tell you what happened next, I want to know, have you ever had a moment like that? When someone's eyes say everything, even when no words are spoken? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe that kind of connection is real, or is it just the way stories like this begin? The silence that followed was heavier than words. I could still feel the echo of his voice in my chest, that low tone that always sounded like it carried secrets. He stood near the window, the city lights outlining his figure while his tie hung loosely around his neck. For a moment, neither of us spoke. It was as if both of us were caught in a pause we didn't know how to break. He finally turned around, his expression calm but unreadable. "You always trust too easily," he said softly, almost like a thought meant for himself. I wanted to ask what he meant, but something about the way his eyes lingered on me made me stay quiet. There was a part of him I didn't understand yet, a quiet storm beneath that confident surface. That night wasn't our first meeting. We had known each other for months, but it had always been complicated. He was my best friend's older brother, someone who was supposed to be off limits. At first, it was just harmless conversation, quick smiles, teasing remarks, but somewhere along the way, it changed. The late-night talks became longer, the glances heavier, and soon, even silence between us felt charged. Still, he always kept a distance. Like he wanted to stop himself but didn't know how. Every time I tried to figure him out, he'd shift, like a puzzle that refused to fit together. That's what made him so intriguing. I couldn't tell if he was protecting me or protecting himself. As he walked closer again, I noticed something different in his eyes, like he was fighting a thought he couldn't escape. "You don't know what you're getting into," he murmured, almost too quietly. His voice trembled for a second, and that was the first time I realized that maybe, beneath all his control, he was afraid too. I tried to smile, to lighten the air between us, but it came out unsure. "Maybe I don't want to know," I said. He laughed softly, shaking his head, but there was no amusement in his eyes. Only tension. The kind that pulls two people closer even when logic says to walk away. The night stretched endlessly after that, neither of us moving, both of us trapped in something we didn't want to end. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then stronger, as if echoing the storm between us. Somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't just about attraction. There was something else, something he was hiding. Maybe a past, maybe a promise. And even though I didn't understand it yet, I could feel it in the way he looked at me, like he was scared I'd see the truth too soon. Before the next moment could unfold, he whispered my name, his voice low and careful, and said, "If I tell you everything, you might not look at me the same again." I didn't know what to say when he told me that. The room suddenly felt smaller, as if his words had pulled the walls closer. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but my heart was already racing. He didn't answer right away, just looked at me, his jaw tight, his eyes full of something between guilt and longing. Finally, he said, "There are things you don't know about me. Things that could hurt you if you get too close." The way he said it made me want to know more, not less. I had seen that look before, the one that hides pain behind control. Maybe that's what drew me to him in the first place. He was the kind of person who carried his past quietly, as if speaking about it would make it real again. He walked to the edge of the bed, sat down, and ran a hand through his hair. For the first time, he looked tired, like he'd been running from something for a long time. "I shouldn't have come here tonight," he said. But even as he said it, he didn't move away. It was like his body betrayed his words. I could have stopped him. I could have let him leave and pretended none of this ever happened. But I didn't. Instead, I took a step closer, drawn by something I couldn't explain. "Then why did you?" I asked. His eyes lifted to meet mine, and for a second, the world outside disappeared. "Because," he said softly, "you make me forget." That was when I realized this wasn't just about attraction or curiosity. There was something much deeper, something neither of us had the courage to face. I wanted to ask what he meant, but part of me was scared of the answer. Just then, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He looked at it and his expression changed instantly, his whole face tensed. I caught a glimpse of the message, "You shouldn't be there." Before I could ask, he grabbed the phone and turned it off. "It's nothing," he said quickly, but his tone betrayed him. The air between us shifted again, colder this time. I sat down beside him, close enough to feel the tension humming off his skin. "You're hiding something," I said quietly. He didn't deny it. He just looked down and said, "Some truths are better left alone." That night, I couldn't sleep. His words replayed in my head, twisting with every possibility. Was it danger, a secret, or someone from his past trying to keep him away from me? The next few days felt strange. He didn't call, didn't text, and I tried to convince myself it didn't bother me, but every quiet minute felt like waiting for something I couldn't name. I replayed that night in my head over and over, his words, his hesitation, that message that said you shouldn't be there. The more I thought about it, the less sense it made. By the third day, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I went to his place. The lights were off, curtains drawn, but his car was parked outside. I hesitated at the door, wondering if I should even be there, then knocked anyway. At first, nothing. Then the faint sound of footsteps inside, slow and reluctant. When he opened the door, he looked different, paler, tired, like he hadn't slept. "You shouldn't have come," he said quietly, echoing that same warning from before. "Then tell me why," I said, stepping inside before he could stop me. The living room was dimly lit, filled with boxes and papers stacked everywhere. It didn't look like a home, it looked like someone preparing to leave in a hurry. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "It's not safe for you," he muttered. There are people who, he stopped himself mid-sentence. His jaw clenched. Forget it. I walked closer, my voice trembling. You keep saying that, but I'm already here. So whatever this is, stop protecting me from it. He looked at me for a long time, the kind of look that says everything words can't. Then he sighed. I used to work with someone, he said slowly. Someone who doesn't forgive mistakes. And I made one. That was all he said, but it was enough to make the room feel colder. I noticed then a small bruise on his arm, the corner of a ripped document on the table with something scribbled on it, an address. Who's after you? I asked quietly. He hesitated, then whispered, someone who thinks I took something that wasn't mine. Before I could ask more, there was a sound outside, a car pulling up, headlights flashing through the window. He moved fast, pulling me away from the window. His heartbeat was loud against my ear. You need to leave. Now, he whispered. But something in me refused to go. I'm not running without you, I said, my voice shaking but firm. He looked at me, torn between anger and fear. You don't understand what's coming, he said. And before I could answer, a loud knock echoed through the door. 3 sharp knocks, too calm, too deliberate. He froze. The look in his eyes said everything. Whoever was on the other side wasn't just a stranger. The knock echoed again, louder this time, followed by silence so sharp I could hear my own heartbeat. He didn't move, didn't breathe. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked scared. Not the kind of fear you see on someone's face when they're caught, it was deeper, like he already knew what was waiting behind that door. Who is it? I whispered, though I wasn't sure I wanted an answer. He didn't look at me. Stay quiet, he said, barely moving his lips. He reached for something under the couch, a small metal key, and slipped it into his pocket. Then, after a few tense seconds, he opened the door just enough to see outside. A man's voice came through, calm but cold. You've been hard to find. He didn't respond. He shut the door quickly, locking it, and turned to me. We have to go, he said, grabbing my hand. His touch was firm, his pulse unsteady. We ran through the back of the house, through a narrow hallway that led to a back door. I could still hear muffled voices outside, footsteps crunching on gravel. He stopped near the kitchen, breathing hard. There's something you need to know, he said. That message you saw, it wasn't a warning. It was a threat. My stomach dropped. A threat from who? He hesitated. My brother. For a second, I thought I misheard him. Your brother. He nodded slowly. We used to work together. We were part of something that went wrong. He blames me for everything that happened, and now he wants to make me pay. The way he said it sent a chill through me. But why drag me into it? His eyes softened. Because he knows what you mean to me. It was the first time he'd said anything like that, and the weight of it hit harder than the fear. But before I could react, the sound of glass breaking cut through the room. Someone was inside. He pushed me toward the door. Go, now. I'm not leaving you. I shouted back, but he didn't listen. He handed me the key he'd taken earlier. There's a cabin north of here, by the lake. If anything happens, go there. Wait for me. Then he turned, stepping between me and the approaching shadow in the hall. For a brief second, our eyes met, his filled with something like regret, and then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness. I ran. The cold air hit me as I burst outside, rain pouring down again just like the night everything began. My hands trembled around the key. The sound of shouting echoed behind me, but I didn't look back. Every instinct screamed to keep going. As I reached the car, one thought wouldn't leave my mind: if his brother was the one after him, what had they really been involved in? And why did I suddenly feel like I was part of something much bigger than either of us? The rain blurred everything around me, and I couldn't tell if the figure I saw in the distance was him or someone else. The drive to the cabin felt endless. The rain blurred the road, and the wipers struggled to keep up. Every sound outside made me flinch, the hum of tires, the rustle of trees, the wind pressing against the glass. My fingers clutched the key so tightly it left marks on my skin. I didn't know if he was alive, if he'd escaped, or if I was driving straight into a trap. By the time I reached the cabin, dawn was breaking. Mist curled around the trees, soft but eerie. The small wooden house looked abandoned, its windows fogged, doors slightly ajar as if waiting for me. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. It smelled like dust and rain-soaked wood. Everything was still. I whispered his name once, no answer. I tried again, louder this time. Nothing. Then I saw it, his jacket, draped over the back of a chair. Relief flooded me, but it didn't last long. On the table lay an envelope, my name written in his handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single note: "If you're reading this, I didn't make it in time. Don't trust anyone who comes after you." Before I could even process the words, I heard footsteps outside. I froze, every instinct screaming to hide. But the voice that followed stopped me cold. "You shouldn't have come here." It was him. Or at least, it sounded like him. I turned, and there he was, standing in the doorway, soaked from the rain. But something was wrong. His expression wasn't the same. His eyes, usually soft even in tension, were colder. He stepped closer, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes curved on his lips. "You really thought he'd come for you, didn't you?" My chest tightened. "You're not him." He laughed quietly. "I'm his brother." Before I could move, another voice came from behind him. "Don't listen to him." It was him, the real one, bruised, breathing hard, but alive. The brothers faced each other, years of anger and betrayal written across their faces. The air between them was thick with unspoken history. His brother sneered. "You took everything from me. Now, I'll take what's yours." He stepped forward, placing himself between us. "You won't touch her." There was a brief, silent standoff before his brother lunged. The struggle was quick, desperate, and ended with a sharp sound, a single moment that changed everything. When it was over, the cabin went still again. He turned to me, breath unsteady. "It's done," he whispered. But his eyes held something deeper, something that said it wasn't over, not really. I reached for his hand, but before I could speak, I noticed the envelope again, only this time, another note had slipped out. When the last echo of that night faded, everything felt unreal: the rain, the fight, the fear. The air in the cabin was thick with silence, the kind that only comes after something irreversible. He stood there, his chest rising and falling, eyes distant like he was somewhere else entirely. The note still lay on the table, the ink smudged by the rain dripping from my hands. I wanted to ask what it meant, but part of me was afraid of the answer. He finally spoke, voice quiet but steady. "There are things I can't erase," he said. "Things that started long before you came into my life." His words carried weight, but his tone softened. "But meeting you, that was the only part one don't regret." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that whatever he'd done, whatever truth he was hiding, the person standing in front of me was real. Maybe that's what love does, it makes you see the good even when the truth hurts. The police came hours later, drawn by the noise, the calls from nearby homes. He didn't resist when they took him away. Before leaving, he looked back once, a small, tired smile crossing his face. "Don't wait for me," he said, but I knew he didn't mean it. And maybe I wouldn't listen even if he did. Weeks passed. Life went on, but something in me had changed. I learned that his brother had been wanted for years, tied to illegal dealings and betrayal within their company. He wasn't innocent, but he wasn't a villain either. He was a man who made mistakes, tried to fix them, and fell in love in the middle of it all. Sometimes, I still visit the lake where that cabin stands. The air there feels different, heavy with memories, quiet with things left unsaid. I still don't know the whole truth, but maybe that's okay. Some stories aren't meant to be understood fully. They're meant to be felt.